Hello. Well, a couple of days after that test at Bray Lake in the last video, we took Woodstock down to Southampton Water to test it in the sea. Things started going wrong the day before, because Dick and I had been to inspect a 22-foot boat that we thought we might buy as a chase boat for when we finally launch Woodstock into the English Channel. And after looking at the boat, we repaired to a wine bar for lunch, and whilst we were there we discovered that my internet was not working but Dick's was, and that the wine bar's Wi-Fi was not working. So it turned out that Dick had to go to a dentist appointment, so I said to him, "Look, you scoot off, I'll pay the bill." So when I got to the end of my meal, I went to pay the bill and discovered that I'd left my wallet behind. So I thought, I wonder if Google Pay will work without internet. And it turns out that it does, so that was okay. But a bit of a scare. I thought I might have to do some washing up instead. So the next day I got up early to take the boat down to Southampton Water, and I could not find my waterproof trousers. So I had to spend the whole day without them and got thoroughly wet in the lower regions. And then I started driving to Southampton Water with the boat, and after I'd gone for about a mile I realised I'd left my mobile phone behind. So I had to come back because I need the mobile phone to set up Wi-Fi hotspot, which is needed by Google Maps, without which the telemetry visualisation will not work. So by the time I got to Weston I was feeling that things were not going particularly well. Anyway, this is what happened when we got there. Well, it's Saturday the 8th of December, and we're here at Weston on the Solent, and everything is going wrong. Well, we set the boat up over there because there are some fishermen nearby, and then Dick had a look at it and he discovered there's a hole in the hull. This is the wind between 13 and 16 mph, which is good, but I think we've got a hole here. Where that's come from. Probably only in the gel coat, but we're going to try and patch it up before we launch. Well, Dick has gone to the shops to see if he can find some quick setting epoxy to block up that hole in the bar. Probably the hole doesn't actually go through the fiberglass, but it's a bit hard to tell. If we can't find any epoxy, we'll probably just use some duct tape and hope for the best. And it's going to be interesting whether we can actually launch Woodstock in the waves that we've got and the very strong onshore wind. Right, so Dick is mixing up some isopalm or whatever the hell it's called down there. What? Yeah. More hardener, the quicker it hardens, I think, don't you?
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think that's excellent. I'm not. I mean, yes I am, but
Stop fiddling!
I know what I'm doing.
That's it, leave it. And we'll know when it goes solid because you'll be stuck to it. Use some duct tape to stop the sheets of the jib getting caught caught up in my orange screws. And there's the time, 10:28. Ready to launch at 10:30. This should be amusing. Go in a circle! Circle! Okay. You have to do that to get out of the auto jibe thing. No idea which way it's supposed to be tacking, but it thinks it's going to, it looks as if it's going to be tacking downwind. Well, tacking in a southerly direction perhaps. Yeah, it's trying to tack in a southerly direction. No, it's trying to turn to starboard, isn't it? It's trying to go to starboard and can't. Moment. It looks as if it's going to come back ashore. It's only just got to get going against the waves. I mean, with this wind it should be able to do it, hopefully.
That was 10:30.
Yeah. Seems to be going okay.
I've got a wet sleeve.
Oh dear. Right. What a nuisance. Because it's so cold. The wind is bitter, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I'm well wrapped up, so I'm not feeling too bad.
Right, well I'm going to go back to the car so that I can have a look at the telemetry. It's coming back. It's not making much progress, is it? It's just more or less staying in the same position, isn't it? It seems to be roughly in the same position as it is all the time, isn't it? Or has it moved?
It should be trying to change tack. Do we know when it changes tack?
When it gets to that green line.
Right, there's nothing on the display that says, right, I'm trying to do that now.
Well, it will say it will change it from 298 to something else.
So it's 163 at the moment.
Oh, well, this stage it has already changed it.
So it's trying to turn through the wind then. It's trying to turn.
Because it's got no way, it can't...
It looks like it's got into auto drive.
No, well yes it has, but it's just come out of it again, Mark.
It's nearby in case it hits the shore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it went into auto drive because it couldn't turn through the wind, and that caused it to come back to shore. So Dick is launching it again. And it's going on the other tack this time at a reasonable speed. It's happier going that way. There might be a problem with this fishing line here. It's gone well beyond it.
What? So it should be turning again, should it?
It is trying to turn, yeah. Did he actually? Did we get?
Yeah, he got
tangled
caught up in the keel caught it.
Yes. And how about this guy?
Well, we're a bit worried about that because he's further out, and if he keeps coming in,
it's just our bad luck that this is the one day of the year where they have this fishing competition.
Oh, it's a competition, is it?
Yes.
I didn't realise that.
To raise money for charity. We don't have much control over this, do we? I mean, it's trying to go on the other tack, but as before, it can't make any progress. This is going to go on going down the shore, actually.
So, its course is 316 at the moment.
Yeah, but it's not actually moving.
Why is that any different?
On the port tack.
Yeah, but why is that any different to sailing on the starboard tack? Because there's the same angle to the wind.
Awful thing.
Now he's turning around.
Why has that happened? He's just going round in circles because he's got no way. The question is, why can't he tap on the port tack when he turns to stop? He's actually drifting backwards, going on to the third fisherman. I think whether you can get him back to shore, I think we're going to have to abandon this and get him back to shore. So. It was bitterly cold and I wanted to put another coat on under my waterproofs, but the zip jammed so I couldn't get them off.
He's gone beyond.
But he's fouling the next fisherman.
He is?
Well, I don't know. He's getting there, isn't he?
It was caught up in his line. So now it might be coming back. See, making progress. I mean, he wasn't making progress because of it.
So, the fiasco with the fisherman looked like this from launch. And then we radio controlled it back to the shore to recover it. So we had to recover it due to further entanglements with the fishermen. So we're going to launch it further up the shore in the hope that it will go on a tack that doesn't go anywhere near the fishermen. So Dick radio controlled it a bit to sail it closer to the wind, because at 60 degrees to the wind it was being blown well over. And we're trying to get it away from these bloody fishermen's lines.
So I radio controlled it to turn. I tried to jibe, it wouldn't do it, so I tried the normal tack and it did turn. Now I've left it back.
So it managed to turn through the wind then, did it? Rather than jibing?
Yeah.
moving very, very slowly. There's no doubt that the tack that's going out to sea is infinitely faster than
you've got the river current, you've got the surface water with the wind,
yes,
and you've got the tide as... Where's boating? I'll tell you, boating.
yeah. Well,
there's a double tide.
What this shows is that this boat with these sails cannot sail against even a very small current. Which means that we're in deep doo-doo.
Boating. Right.
Right, so you're going to take radio control to see if you can sail closer to the wind than that. Not sure what Dick is doing up here. Perhaps he thought he was getting, or maybe gets a better view that way. So when we relaunched it again like this, Dick had to take radio control just to try and experiment with sailing close to the wind. It went past its green tack corridor, tried a couple of auto jibes but still couldn't turn, and so Dick took radio control again and managed very quickly to turn it. And then it was going quite well on its slow tack. Dick decided to take radio control to see if he could do any better, and made pretty much of a mess of it. And so then he let it go, the autopilot go again, and it did better than he did. So got it back into its corridor. Couldn't turn. Auto jibe didn't work. A possible reason for this is seen in this clip here from the deck. Or in slow motion. And then Dick took radio control again, turned it. And then this bit here, it actually gets on quite an interesting southerly course where it was sailing quite fast. 1.8 mph there. I'll just show you what that looks like. For some reason Dick decided to take radio control again, and he sailed it quite a long way in the wrong direction. I'm not quite sure why that happened, but whilst it was happening we noticed some interesting effect. This PWM signal here is measured by the micromite and is supposed to be the actual control signal to the rudder. So it should always be between sort of plus and minus 50 degrees, but we had these weird values of 143, minus 75, etc., which didn't make any sense. So this made us wonder whether we were actually successfully radio controlling the boat at all. We were quite a way out here. So that's something that needs to be looked into. Eventually he enabled the autopilot again, and the autopilot sort of recovered the situation after a bit of faffing about, got over almost exactly back to where we were half an hour ago. And then Dick radio controlled it, still with this dodgy radio control, in this direction, quite a long way to the northwest. So eventually it got into a position where it could sail directly or to P1, which is the waypoint we've been trying to get to all the time from base to P1. So after God knows how many hours, it felt like we actually got into P1. And then we managed to get into P2, We just shaved past P3, couldn't turn round, tried auto-jibing. I was beginning to fear that we'd never see the boat again. Eventually, somehow it managed to turn round and came all the way back again and actually hit P3 this time. And then it went to P4, which is absolutely fine, eventually, into P4, and then it went for P5. And at this point, I had coded a return to home feature, rather like the drones that we've got, whereby if the boat had been sailing for 2 hours, it would set the waypoint back to base so that it would at least come home in an emergency. And this is what happened. As you can see, if you watch the waypoint here, it was trying to get to P5, and then the return to home feature clicked in, and it set it back to base. And I'll show you what happened then in a minute. So this is part 3 of the trip, where the return to home waypoint of base 2 had been set, and it needs to sail in a northerly or northeasterly direction to achieve that, which is basically sailing pretty much downwind. But it had difficulty in doing that. If you look here, the course, desired course, is 27 degrees, and which is up here, and the boat is actually at 90 degrees to that desired course, and so we're trying to rotate the boat round to about 30 degrees, and we completely failed to do so whilst moving sideways. Most of the time, if you just watch the boat, it never stops at 30 degrees, despite us wanting to go there, and even with radio control it didn't, and we went all over the place. And eventually we were more or less blown ashore. It's a lot of the time, see that there, the boat is going sideways, as shown by the pink and the yellow arrows. Whether the radio control was working or whether this is just a random walk, I wouldn't like to say. But eventually we actually got back to the shore, and I was very relieved, although Dick was always completely confident for some reason best known to himself. Well, the wind has broken the camcorder. We can't sail anything, we can't run downwind. It's always sailing broadside onto the wind, and the radio control is not working. Having any joy?
Well, it's responding.
Well, I'm glad to see you, Woodstock. Jolly glad to see you. I thought I'd never see you again. I'll stand on it. I'm standing on it. So when we got the boat back ashore, we realised that the sheet that holds the jib was mounted on the wrong ring. It should have been on that brass ring further astern, and not on the stainless steel ring where Dick's hand is at this moment. So that made the whole arrangement asymmetric and could have explained some of our problems, but not all of our problems. So we established that the boat could not run downwind satisfactorily, and that the auto jibe, when it was trying to turn downwind, didn't work at all well. in spite of the fact that we had, whereas before, when auto-jibe came into effect, it just slammed the helm from one extreme to the other. We inserted a 10-second period in the middle of centralised rudder in the hope that that would cause the boat to pick up speed. But analysing the data afterwards, it didn't seem to, it did that half the time, but the other half of the time it actually slowed down. So not sure how effective that was. We weren't sure whether the radio control was working correctly. And whilst all this was going on, an enormous gust came ashore and blew my camera tripod over, smashing the camcorder onto the tarmac. So that wasn't particularly thrilling either. So all in all, it was quite a fiasco. Well, so we got a lot of data and we learnt quite a few things, and we've got a lot of thinking to do and revision, I think. So we'll see what happens next time. Thanks very much for watching. Well, this is my camcorder after it had been dropped on the floor. This bit of it has come off here. One of the batteries fell on the floor and its cap came off. If I'd had the sense to look for that cap, I could just stick it back on again, but I forgot to do that. I think this goes on here, and this bit of it goes in that slot there. I've got to work out how to get this apart in order to restore that. Well, I managed to get this back together again. I'm filming this on the camcorder that was broken. And I found the rest of the battery. That bit of the battery was still fixed to the camera, so I just glued it back together again crudely with impact adhesive. Saw a video on YouTube that told me how to take this apart, the LCD screen apart, and put it back together again. Seems to be okay.